Welcome to Life, Love, and Good Stuff. Father and daughter chats with David and Sophie McCallum. Here we discuss seeing and living life through the lens of self-love, how family relationships and life experiences hinder or fuel an authentic, rewarding life. A life filled with conscious, compassionate self-love. And sometimes we just have a good chat. Actor David McCallum has appeared in theater, film, and television and is a critically acclaimed author. David's most enduring roles include the Russian agent Ilya Kuryakin in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Dr. Donald Ducky Mallard on the CBS hit NCIS. Sophie McCallum was born in New York City where she lives today. Sophie's a certified life coach but specializes in self-love coaching as the self-love peddler. Sophie is an energy leadership master practitioner and strives to start each day with love in her heart for herself and the world around her. Welcome to part 2 of Chats with Mummy as opposed to Dad. Hi.
Hi.
You are an amazing mother.
Thank you.
You told me when I had my first child to trust my instincts. Amazing advice. I did not know what I was doing. It's a miracle that kid is as cool as he is because,
he is very cool.
I mean, I say it all the time to him. I'm like, man, I was so clueless when I had you.
But you aren't because you have instincts.
Well, thank you. And you even went, I had postpartum for about 4 weeks. I was in a walk-up and I had a C-section, so I couldn't really go downstairs. At the time, I was waxing, not shaving my legs, so I couldn't make an appointment to get them waxed, so I looked like Chewbacca. The whole thing was just like a shit show. And if I had someone who was feeding me doubt, I would have sucked. That would have really been dark. And on top of that, I had a kid who didn't sleep. Now
he wasn't easy.
Oh, and now that he's a teenager and he'll sleep till 4 p.m.
Yeah.
I think, why couldn't you have done this 18 years ago? But anyway, thank you for telling me to trust my instincts because it worked. And part of the reason I had good instincts is because we're animals with instincts.
Right.
And part of the reason is because part of it is learned behavior. I think you can have instinctual learned behavior. Someone gives you enough guidance or leads by the power of example enough that you start to emulate them. And so I was emulating you because you're the only mother I've ever had. So thank you. And how'd you get to be such a darn good mom?
Well, I wouldn't have considered having a baby nurse.
I would if I could do it again. I think you are way wrong on that. Sorry.
Well, I'm telling you.
My fancy friends who have baby nurses, they sleep.
And they take care of the baby while you make lunch for them. I just don't, I don't want anybody laying their hands on my kid. I'm raising it my way, and that's it.
And here I am.
And here you are.
You did it.
It worked out okay. So, yeah, that's really important to me. I remember saying to my mother I wouldn't consider having anybody help me with the children ever. And she, having 4 children, 10 years, she said, but if you don't have somebody to help with the little ones, you can't do fun things with the big ones. And that was a good point. And I understood that. But I wasn't a babysitter as a child. I didn't do that. I didn't.
No. I did it a handful of times.
Yeah,
and every time I left thinking why the fuck would anyone do that? That was awful.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, can't they just watch the Disney movies I put on? I don't want to do this stuff with you.
Really?
But even growing up, you always said it, you weren't a player the way Dad was.
That's true.
Dad would sit and
true.
do Lego and stuff with us.
Yeah.
You would draw and do things that interested you. And you always treated us as if we were smart, capable, participating humans that you were happy to be around. But you weren't trying to pull out the toys and play together.
No.
Unless it was a competitive game of some sort where you could win and tell us how thankful we'd be when we're older, knowing that if we ever won, we really won because you were never going to let us win.
Yes, that's true.
But I could get you in memory. Maybe not today, but back then.
Oh, yeah. No, you were really good
I
at
was
that.
good at that.
That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And you came by it honestly. Didn't that feel better to you?
Yeah, it made me the beacon of security I am today.
Well, I won't let your husband see my card trick. I only have one, but it's a good one, because he's too smart.
If you want to see your card trick and you'd like a whole podcast, I've heard, just kidding.
Let me ask you, have you felt as if you have never lived up to your true potential? Do you hear a voice inside telling you that you're destined for more? Are you craving to love yourself more and live a fuller life? Welcome. My name is Sophie, and I'm your personal self-love peddler. I've created a program that allows you to forge into your most authentic life by guiding you on how to fully self-love. When we love ourselves and hold the space needed to learn about ourselves, our internal voice becomes crystal clear. When we start to listen to that voice, we begin to start living the life of our dreams. The path to getting there is paved with self-love. If you're a woman who does not stop to tune into self-care, to listen to yourself, if you ignore all the red flags and all the signs telling you that you are worth more, then you are exactly who this program is meant for. With the Flourish and Fly Learning How to Self-Love program, you will finally find the answers you have been seeking inside of yourself. We know children and even plants grow and learn best when surrounded by love, compassion, and encouragement. Guess what? So do grown-ass women. The women who work with me learn to nurture their true selves by turning their love inward, to grow and learn, to flourish and fly. If you're struggling with self-love and are nodding your head, yes, please click the link below and join me inside of this program. I cannot wait to guide you to flourish and fly with love.
Back to being a mother.
Back to being a mother. So it comes to mind that I want to ask people, particularly people my age, my peers, if they would do anything differently as parents, now knowing what they know. And when I pose that question to myself, I think I would give more freedom. I would have let your brother be late for school and suffer the consequences instead of spending half an hour trying to wake him up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a big mistake I made. But he was extremely agile about that problem. He would run out the door with the bacon stuffed bagel I was giving him for breakfast and jump in a taxi, get to school, sell the bacon stuffed bagel to whoever wanted it, which were many, and get the money to pay for the taxi the next day. That was, that was quick thinking. I mean, not quick thinking, that was creative thinking.
Mm-hmm.
When he was a bad boy and had his allowance cut off, he would set up a little shop in front of our building in Manhattan and sell things that he'd made. He did well at that.
The greatest thing he peddled was the...
Potholders?
No, the potholders were nice, those potholders that you weave, but that required buying stuff.
Oh.
The best was the paperweights, because those were cute.
Made of rocks.
Yes. Peter went out and collected a shit ton of huge rocks, or stones, like a fist-sized stone, and then lots of little pebbles. And then sometimes he would put me to work too, but never shared the profits. But that's the beauty of being the younger child. You get taken advantage of as a kid. Yeah. So when you get older, look out. But he glued eyes, nose, and a little mouth on the rocks. Or maybe no mouth. I think just eyes and nose.
No.
Were there mouths? They were very attractive, effective. I would buy them today if I saw them.
We still have a couple of them.
And then we would sit out front of in front of the building in the city selling them to passersby.
And people want to give kids a break.
And nobody wants their nasty lemonade.
Nobody wants the lemonade
Anything
that their
that
noses have run into.
Gross. I don't want anything you've cooked or stewed or bottled.
Right.
Note
Absolutely.
to kids, arts and crafts, yes, sell me a beautiful pasta necklace, but don't try to get me to eat your sticky finger food.
Oh. True. No, I don't believe he ever sold
food.
Right. My brother and his friends did. They would sell big red brownies that Mommy had made.
Oh, because your friends called your mother Big Red.
Yeah. And she did make red brownies. And,
that was the 40s and 50s. I think kids maybe were cleaner back then. I don't know. We're less everything a little more organized.
Right.
So differently, you said more freedom. I understand what you're saying, but we had plenty of freedom.
Oh, yes.
I think it's more space to be responsible and accountable for your actions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel, with my being the second child, that you did that with me? Because I was more independent.
But the second child is smart enough not to make the same mistakes the first has made. Katie called.
Peter, Sophie, Luca, Ian.
Yeah.
I mean, Luca, my oldest, they went to a very difficult school, private school in New York City. And Luca went into his room every night, his last few years at the school, and was super organized and had little Post-it notes of what he needed to do and what order he was going to do it in. And then he would fold them up, like little origami, and he had a jar he would put the notes in after he finished the task.
Wow.
Which I did not have anything to do with creating this process. But Ian, when it was his turn to be at the same period in his education, he just stopped working. He just stopped.
Just didn't do it.
No. All the mothers would say to me, "Oh my gosh, they have so much homework. How is Ian doing?" And I'd be like, "Really? Ian doesn't seem to have any." But I stayed out of it because I felt very strongly, and I still do, and I struggle with this with my third son's school, that homework and education is up to the school, completely up to the kid, the homework when he gets home. And I'm responsible for values and moral direction and treating kindness and empathy and making them aware that what goes on in our four walls is sacred and unique to us and doesn't have to align with everybody else.
Right.
It's great when it does, but we don't owe it to anyone to make that the case.
Right.
And creating their, not humanism, but their substance.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different kind of education. So when Ian stopped doing homework, I let it go. And he's really smart and doing really well in school.
And
it all works out. For those of you with small children, it all works out. Give them space. Mm-hmm. So maybe giving us a little more accountability is what you mean by freedom, because we were pretty free.
Yes, but the first thing that comes to my mind is the getting up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Make it their responsibility.
I always got up at 5. Remember?
You did. You've always done that. Gotten up.
I always loved morning.
Morning is so great. Oh my goodness.
Morning is best.
Morning is best.
Do you remember that child story I had? It's Grasshopper. What's it called? It's Arnold Lobel.
Frog and Toad?
Same author and illustrator, but it's about a grasshopper who takes a walk. I can't remember. It might be Mouse Soup. I think it's one of the Mouse Soup books where they just tell a series of stories.
Yeah.
And this one is about a grasshopper who goes for a very, very, very long walk.
Yeah.
And he comes across a certain species of insect that is convinced that morning is great, and they all have signs that say, "Morning is best. All hail morning." And he's marching with them and saying, "Oh, I love mornings. You're right, morning." But then at one point he says, "Well, afternoons are nice too." And all of the bugs, "Excuse me?" And they kick him out for liking afternoons. And that goes on with bugs that like afternoons and bugs that like evenings. And the moral of the story is stay away from packs of people telling you to think only one way.
Right.
It's a great story. I love all those Arnold Lobel books.
They are terrific.
You read to me a lot as a child.
Oh, good.
And you and Dad told me at one point when I was about 17 and I was packing up my things because you told me they shouldn't be in your home anymore. And you said you'd store them for me, but that I didn't have a room anymore.
When you were 17? What are you talking about? You were still in boarding school.
18, I was at NYU. Okay, maybe 18, but you did at a certain point. I was not in my 20s. You said it's time. We'll store whatever you want, but this is now my closet. When did you turn my room into your closet?
You mean when we 2001, the year after you were married?
Oh, maybe I'm rewriting history.
Maybe you are.
But you told me to take. I can do that every once in a while.
You can rewrite history.
Yeah, with stuff like this, I can. I was like 6, and you made me move out. All right, so maybe I was in my late 20s.
Okay,
but
okay.
I packed up all of the books that I really loved, and you did teach me to love those books. And Dad, I know Dad, and possibly you told me I was crazy that you couldn't store books, that they would go bad. And then when Luca...
I would never tell you that.
Well, then it was Dad. When Luca was born, I had all, and I still, to this day, have all of these wonderful books. And I was so disciplined about reading them to Luca, but with subsequent kids, I've pulled back a little. And Ollie has asked that all of those stinky books, as he calls it, because they are a little smelly, go in the basement where they are. But I've got them, and they're wonderful. So thank you
the
for
basement
reading.
in New York.
In the city, yeah.
Okay.
But you are a wonderful reader to your children. Super important.
Very. It's so wonderful to share those books through generations.
What were some of your favorites as a child? And what were some of your favorites from my childhood?
Well, we loved a lot of English books because we were living in London when Peter was 2 and 3. And, The Elephant and the Bad Baby, The Tiger Who Came to Tea, those books were Would You Rather?
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
Rather. The King Who Reigned. Remember
The King Who Reigned, yes, yes.
Please do check all of these out if you're listening, because they are great.
And, of course, all the Beatrix Potter.
Those my kids didn't gravitate towards.
No.
The language was too antiquated at that point.
And anthropomorphism is just so common. I mean, she was early on that, making animals have human characteristics.
Yeah, I know it. Thank you. I know it.
Well, I don't know that your
audience knows. You guys know what anthropomorphic means. I don't think it's the fact that it's not the anthropomorphicization that's turning people away. It's the actual copy. It's the words. If you took those beautiful watercolor drawings and modernized the language, I'm not saying you should. I think there'd be an audience for it.
I don't know.
There's a gentleness to them that is lost on this generation.
But Disney took Peter Rabbit and mucked it up.
But if you look at the newer Peter Rabbits, they're pretty sweet. No, I don't know that they mucked it. Things change, right? Your brother always said that's what we can count on.
My brother said change is good.
And that it's the one thing you can count on, right? Change is good. Things change.
Change is good.
Count on it. Anyway, so what were some stories of your childhood? Do you remember?
What kind of stories?
Books.
Oh, books. I remember reading. I remember reading a lot and reading the Bobbsey Twins. That was a series of novels for, I don't know, Ollie's age, 12-year-olds maybe. There were 40, probably, like Nancy Drew or some of the others. I don't remember the others, but I do remember the Bobbsey Twins. And The Little House.
I love The Little House.
The Little House was written before I was born, I think.
That's a good one.
It's a really good one.
Back to motherhood and mothering. What tools in the mothering toolbox did you gather from your mother and pass on?
I think when you grow up, it's, at least where I grew up, your friends' parents were your parents' friends. So basically it was sort of a smallish community. But I know from talking to other peers that it's, you kind of think everybody's household is set up like yours. And it isn't. And it's how old you are when you find that out. And we had a pretty beaver cleaver-ish household, it was, 4 kids, 10 in 10 years, but the girls were 7 years apart and the boys were 8 years apart. So there wasn't as much competition as there might have been when you all go to the same school and everything. But we had just such a loving mother, such a wonderfully loving mother. And if you're lucky enough to have that, wow.
I am.
You are.
And I'm lucky enough to have you a lot longer than you had her.
Yeah, right. That's true.
How old were you when she died?
When Mommy died, I was 27.
And she was?
She was just 49. I was just 27. But I had a husband and a baby.
Right.
Our brother George had been killed in Vietnam, and Carolyn was 20 and Jake was 17, and it was harder for them. Especially Jake, who did not have a good relationship with Dad.
It's interesting, something that I love about us, we McCallums, is that you say you had a very beaver cleaver childhood and family, but then in the next paragraph talk about all of this sadness and tragedy. But when someone asks you about your family, it's not a story of tragedy. It's the beaver cleaver. It's leading with that positivity and focusing on that and remembering that. Not because the negative doesn't happen, but because life is full of highs and lows and goods and bad. And it's a lot more enjoyable if you focus on the positive and the highs and the good.
True.
Another lesson you guys taught me. And something that you share with Dad.
Right.
Which I love.
Dad had a very loving mother, too. And...
loud voice. You're whispering a little bit.
Sorry. And, I mean, when Valentine's daughter Stella asked your father...
Valentine is Dad's
son from his first marriage. And when his daughter Stella asked David if anything scary happened when he was a kid, like this COVID pandemic, and he said, well, Stella McCallum, when I was your age, I was living in London, and the Germans were bombing us every night. She said, oh.
But even that...
The absolute truth is that when you were a little boy and there were real good guys and bad guys, it wasn't all bad. I mean, luckily, no one in their family got hurt, but it was pretty bad in London.
But Dad always told us the story of running down to school to be the first one to clean up the rubble so that they could get extra points from the teacher, because somehow during World War II, everybody's still showing up for school. Like,
and getting money for picking up shrapnel.
That sounds like a great idea. Let's let all of the children come down to the bombed out school and gather shrapnel while the teacher supervises. Oh, that's funny. Well, on that note, I love you. More coming in part 3.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Sophie McCallum, and I just wanted to take a minute to thank all of the absolutely exceptional fans of my father's who have been listening to my podcast. I am the Self-Love Peddler. You can find me at selflovepeddler.com. And I work with women, as you know from listening to my podcast, to help them uncover love for themselves so that they can truly get to know themselves, so that they can have these lives that flourish into their wildest dreams. So I didn't originally set out to do a podcast with my dad. I did a podcast with a lot of different people. But the podcast that I did with him, that one episode, just resonated with me so much. I just had to keep going. I am so very, very, very blessed to have him in my life and to have my mother in my life. Every day that they are here with me, I know is a gift. And they have really helped me uncover my passion, which is, as I said, helping women uncover their passions. So if you or any loved ones that you know might be interested in working with me, I just launched an amazing course called Flourish and Fly, which is the basics to self-love. It's a super effective, fun, and efficient course that I really enjoyed making. And even when I watched it to make sure everything was in order, I got so much out of it as a viewer.
So that was really rewarding to create something and then to profit from it in my proof watching, if you will. I work with women of all ages. You may have granddaughters who you see on social media all the time or on their devices all the time. I know that can be really scary for those of us who don't really know what's going on there. It's a tough time to be a young woman growing up. All women are told that the future is female and that they hold all the cards, yet at the same time they have food, fashion, and diet industries telling them that they're not good enough and that they need to change to be worthy. So it's a tough time. There's a lot of dialogue coming at women from different directions, women of all ages. So just going to promote what I'm offering to the community in case there's a woman in your community, or if you yourself would be interested in checking out my course. I'm really extremely proud of it. Flourish and Fly. It's my calling, getting these things out there. And I really appreciate your help and your encouragement and your support. And for all you male Man from Uncle fans out there, I don't mean to exclude you. Thank you as well. It's a real joy sharing this connection I have with my dad with you. Every time I sit down with him, I learn so much. And sometimes I hear stories that I've heard over and over and over again, and I don't mind it for a minute. And I love that even though I've heard a lot of these stories before, you guys haven't. So it's a real gift to share this. And what's been really fun too is as we go through this process, at first I would come to our recordings with a list of things to discuss. And now when I see my dad, which is very often, we're quite close, he says things like, so I was thinking this would be a good topic, or that would be a good topic. And he's starting to think about this format and this forum that we have together. And he's so sweet. He's always learning, right? And always growing and always trying new things. As many of you know, he's writing his second book right now, and he's all in. And he's also still working full time and flying out to California to work. But he's started to bring topics to the table for us to discuss, such as energy, and that's never been like his forte, his playground, if you will. And it's not that he's taking my lead, it's that he is finding a way to be interested in what interests me. And he knows that through that, he will grow. And we can all learn a lot from him. He's really a special human being. And it's such a pleasure and such a treat for me to be doing this podcast. I hope we do many, 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 many more. And again, this is just a little interruption to say thank you, to plug my job, because I feel so strongly that what I do is providing a service that can help so many, and it brings me so much joy to share it with you. And I'm so glad that I have brought you joy sharing some more of my dad with you. And let's just keep it all going. So thank you. And more to come, I promise. Keep on listening and keep on being your awesome selves. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for spending time with us today. Please hit the subscribe button so you're notified each time a Life, Love, and Good Stuff Father and Daughter Chats with David and Sophie McCallum podcast drops. Until next time, remember to lead with love.